It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to answer. A man's voice, calm but trembling, said, "Is this Daniel Carter's brother?" For a second I froze. I didn't have a brother. I almost hung up, but something in his voice made me say yes. That one word changed my life. Back then, I was just another tenant trying to survive. After losing my job, I moved into a small, pale yellow duplex on the edge of town, the kind of place that smelled like damp carpets and quiet sadness. My landlord, Mr. Lewis, seemed kind at first. Always smiling, always asking if I needed anything. He said I reminded him of his late son. I believed him. He'd bring leftover food sometimes, fix things himself. Once he even helped me move in an old couch from the curb, insisting, "A young man deserves comfort." I remember thinking maybe not all landlords are bad. But I was wrong, so wrong. A month after moving in, small things began to feel off. Letters arrived in my name that I never sent for. Insurance companies, credit banks, even hospitals I'd never been to. When I asked Mr. Lewis, he chuckled, "Oh, probably a mix-up, happens all the time." But there was something in his eyes, something careful, almost rehearsed. Still, I brushed it off. Then one rainy afternoon, I came home to find my front door slightly open. Nothing was stolen, but my drawers were half shut, my closet door left ajar. When I told Mr. Lewis, he looked genuinely concerned. He said, "You should have locked up tighter, this neighborhood been getting worse." He handed me a new key, different from my old one, and told me he'd upgraded the lock. That night I couldn't sleep. Something about how easily he had a new key ready didn't feel right. Days passed and strange calls kept coming. "Is this Daniel Carter's brother?" "Sir, this is about Daniel's life insurance." Once I even heard the words, "We've processed the death certificate." Death certificate. My name. I called one of the numbers back, pretending to be calm. The woman on the line said politely, "Mr. Carter's beneficiary has already filed the claim. We're just waiting for final confirmation." I asked, "Who's the beneficiary?" She replied, "His brother, a Mr. Lewis Carter." I dropped the phone. Lewis. My landlord. For days I replayed every conversation with him in my head. Every time he asked about my family, my health, where I worked, he was collecting information. But how? How could he even make a death certificate for someone who was alive? The next morning I went straight to the insurance office. I told them there was a mistake, that I wasn't dead, and I didn't even have a brother named Lewis. The woman behind the counter looked uneasy. She said, "Sir, could you please wait here?" Minutes later, two men in suits appeared. They asked me for ID, then quietly escorted me to a back room. There on the table lay a file stamped with my name, photo, and date of birth. But under next of kin it said, "Brother Lewis Carter." The photo wasn't even mine. It was a slightly blurred picture of me standing in front of the duplex, taken from a distance like someone spying. I demanded to know who submitted it. The man in the suit said, "Sir, Mr. Lewis provided all verification. He had your documents, your social ID, even medical records." My heart pounded. "How did he get those?" I asked. The man hesitated. He said, "You passed away in a car accident last month." The report matched. Car accident. Last month. That was the same week I found my front door open. My voice cracked. "He broke in, he stole everything. He's trying to collect my insurance." But the men didn't believe me at first. They said these cases are rare and they'd need an investigation before freezing the claim. I left the office shaking, half in disbelief, half in rage. When I got home, Mr. Lewis was standing in the yard, watering his plants as if nothing happened. He smiled, "Everything okay, Daniel?" I forced a smile back, "Yeah, just a long day." But inside I was boiling. That night I stayed up researching how insurance fraud worked. It turned out if someone declared dead has no immediate family to contest it, the payout can go straight to whoever's listed as next of kin, especially if they have documents and a forged death certificate. And I had no close relatives, my parents were gone, no siblings, no one who'd notice. He chose me perfectly. The next day, I installed a hidden camera in my living room. Then I pretended to leave for work even though I was unemployed. I parked my car 2 streets away and waited. At 10:47 a.m. he came. I watched from my phone as Mr. Lewis unlocked my door with his key, walked straight in, and opened my mail drawer. He took out papers, bills, maybe forms, and started photographing them. I called the police right then. When they arrived, he was still inside. But things didn't go how I expected. He claimed he came in because of a gas leak, said he was just checking for safety. The police checked my stove, it was off, but since he was the property owner, they said it wasn't a criminal break-in. I tried showing them the footage. They said they'd make a report but couldn't press charges without clear criminal intent. Lewis apologized, his tone perfectly calm. I was just worried, Daniel. I thought I smelled something last night. He even patted my shoulder before leaving. That night my camera went missing. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at my door, every creak in the wood making my skin crawl. The next morning I found a white envelope slipped under my door. Inside there was a single note. Don't make this harder, Daniel. You were never supposed to exist this long. My hands trembled so bad I could barely hold it. I packed my bag ready to leave, but before I could step out, someone knocked. It was Mr. Lewis. His smile was gone. Can we talk? He asked softly. I didn't want to, but fear made me open the door just enough to hear him. He said, you've made things complicated. I never wanted to hurt you, but you need to stop. I asked, stop what? He looked me dead in the eyes. Stop pretending you're Daniel Carter. For a second I thought I misheard him. He continued, Daniel Carter died in that crash last month. You're just someone using his name. I've already submitted the proof. My voice cracked. What are you talking about? I'm Daniel. He shook his head slowly, almost pitying. You should leave town, son, before they realize what you've done. Then he walked away. That night I searched my name online, and what I found froze my blood. There was a local article, dated 3 weeks ago. Young man dies in car crash, identified as Daniel Carter, 29. The photo was mine, the license plate was mine. Except I'd never been in a crash. I stared at the screen for minutes, numb. Someone had reported my death, with photos, details, even a fake police report. And the reporter? A man named Thomas Lewis. He had used his own name to make it look official. At that point I realized this wasn't just fraud, this was a plan. He'd been setting it up for months. Every friendly visit, every time he asked for ID verification or helped with forms, he was collecting data. I was a ghost in his story now. The next morning I went to the police with the article, the note, and the footage I'd backed up online. They listened this time. A detective named Laura took my statement seriously. She said she'd seen similar identity scams before but never one this elaborate. They said they'd contact the insurance company immediately to freeze the payout. That night, for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Until the power went out. Everything went dark. I grabbed my phone, no signal. The only light came from the faint orange glow outside my window. Someone was standing by the fence, just a shadow, not moving. Then slowly it turned and walked toward the door. I locked it and backed away, holding my phone up like a weapon. There was a soft knock. Then a voice, calm, familiar. Daniel, I told you to stop digging. I didn't answer, my heart hammered in my chest. He knocked again, harder this time. Then the sound of metal scraping. He was trying to unlock it. I ran to the back door, but it was chained from outside. I tried the window, painted shut. The front lock clicked. I grabbed a kitchen knife, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The door creaked open, slow and deliberate. His silhouette appeared in the doorway, holding something small and black, maybe a flashlight, maybe something else. He stepped in, voice calm, almost soothing. You weren't supposed to suffer, Daniel. You were supposed to just disappear quietly. My legs felt weak. I backed toward the hallway, whispering, why are you doing this? He sighed, because I need to live, and your name is worth more dead than alive. Before I could react, he lunged. I swung the knife, missed, and ran into the bedroom, slamming the door. I pushed the dresser against it, breathing hard. I heard him outside muttering, you don't understand, this isn't personal. Then silence. I waited, minutes passed, then footsteps fading away. I stayed barricaded until morning. When I finally opened the door, he was gone, but on the floor lay another envelope. Inside, there was a photocopy of a life insurance check, $500,000 with my name and his listed as beneficiary brother. At a single handwritten line beneath it. Tomorrow it clears. I called Detective Laura immediately, voice trembling, and she told me to leave the house at once. She said a team would be there in an hour. But when I stepped outside, the street was empty, no cars, no neighbors, just silence. That's when I noticed something under my windshield wiper, a small photograph. It was a picture of me sleeping, taken from my bedroom window. I dropped it, my pulse roared in my ears. Somewhere behind me, a voice said softly, almost tenderly, "You really should have stayed dead, Daniel." I spun around, but there was no one there, just the echo of my own breathing, loud and uneven. My hands were trembling so badly that I could barely unlock my car. I got in, slammed the door, and locked it again. The street was empty. Every house looked asleep, every curtain drawn, as if the whole neighborhood was pretending not to see what was happening. I turned the key, the engine coughed once, twice, then died. That's when I saw it, a thick black cable running under my car. It looked like it had been cut. He'd sabotaged it. Panic surged through me. I ran down the street barefoot, clutching my phone, trying to call Detective Laura again. Still no signal. I didn't stop running until I reached the gas station at the corner. The cashier gave me a strange look when I burst in, breathless and shaking. "Please," I said, "can I use your landline? It's an emergency." He hesitated, then pointed to the phone near the register. I dialed the number the detective gave me earlier. After what felt like an hour, she picked up. "Daniel, where are you?" I told her everything, the photo, the note, the cable under my car. She told me not to go back to the house and that a team was already on the way. She'd send a patrol to pick me up from the gas station. For the next 15 minutes, I sat there watching the dark road outside through the glass door. Every car that passed made me flinch. Every sound felt too close. Then, finally, 2 police cars pulled in. They asked me to wait inside while they checked the house. When they came back, one of the officers said quietly, "We didn't find anyone there, but the place has been searched. Someone went through all your drawers." I asked if they found the envelope or the camera footage, but they just shook their heads. Everything was gone, even my laptop. Detective Laura arrived a few minutes later, her face tight with concern. "He's covering his tracks," she said, "but he's sloppy. We'll find him." They offered to put me in protective housing for a few days. I didn't argue, I just wanted to feel safe. That night, in a small motel near the station, I lay on a bed that smelled like bleach and fear, staring at the ceiling. Every sound made me twitch. Every knock from the pipes sounded like a footstep outside the door. The next morning, Laura showed up with files. She said they'd found something disturbing. Lewis wasn't who he said he was. His real name was Arthur Lewis Thompson. He'd changed identities 3 times in the past decade. Each time he'd rented out property under a new name. Each time one of his tenants had died. One was a woman who'd fallen down the stairs. Another, a man who overdosed. Both cases ended with insurance payouts to someone claiming to be a relative. That someone was always him under a different alias. She looked at me seriously. "You're the first one who survived long enough to see the pattern." Hearing that sent a chill through me that no warmth could shake. Over the next few days, I stayed under police watch while they built the case. They got a warrant for his property. Inside his basement, they found a photo wall, dozens of pictures pinned up like trophies. Among them were my own photos, me buying groceries, me jogging, me standing at the mailbox, and under each, neatly labeled in red ink, the words, "Status complete." Except mine said pending. There were files on every tenant he'd ever had, their birth certificates, IDs, even fake obituaries he'd written himself. He was methodical, cold, precise. But he'd made one mistake. He'd left behind a USB drive labeled Elsie Carter. On it were scans of all the documents he'd forged for my case, my death certificate, my signature, even fake hospital records. The proof was undeniable. The police issued a warrant for his arrest. But by the time they got to his other property, he was gone. His car was missing. His bank accounts were drained. For weeks there was no sign of him. I tried to get back to normal, but normal didn't exist anymore. Everywhere I went, I felt watched. I'd catch reflections in windows that looked like him. Once, I even heard someone whistle the same tune he used to hum while watering his plants. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My life felt stolen even though I was still breathing. Then one evening, Detective Laura called. Her voice was sharp, urgent. "Daniel, we think he's left the state. There was a car abandoned near the border with a fake ID in his new name, Michael Carter." I froze. "Carter, my last name." She continued, "We found application forms for a new insurance policy. It's like he's trying to restart the same scam, but this time he's using your identity fully, as if you're the dead one and he's the brother starting over." It hit me like a punch. He wasn't just erasing me, he was becoming me. Days passed in a blur. I had to constantly verify who I was, showing police documents, fingerprints, even childhood photos. Every system had my record marked as deceased. My name had become a ghost in every database. Then came the letter. No return address, just my name printed neatly in the middle. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Daniel, you've taken something that was never yours, your life. I gave you a quiet ending. You ruined it, now I'll have to make it real." There was no signature, just a smudge of dark ink at the bottom like a fingerprint. I wanted to believe it was a sick prank, but deep down I knew it was. A week later, someone broke into the motel. Nothing was stolen, but on the bathroom mirror, written in soap, were 3 words. "Time running out." I moved to a new place under police suggestion. They fitted me with a security camera system linked directly to their servers. I was living like a ghost in hiding, afraid of shadows, afraid of silence. One night around 2 a.m. I woke up to the faint sound of static, the kind that comes from an old TV left on a dead channel. I checked my cameras. The feed was black. Then slowly, one by one, they flickered on. Living room empty. Kitchen empty. Front porch. My stomach dropped. There he was, standing just outside the porch light, face hidden under a hood, looking directly into the camera. He didn't move, didn't knock, didn't speak, just stood there staring. I called Laura immediately. Within minutes, patrol cars were on their way, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. No footprints, no sign of forced entry, just a single envelope taped to the door. Inside, there was a photo of me sleeping again, but this one was taken in the motel. A place only the police knew. Someone had leaked my location. The department launched an internal investigation, but nothing came out of it. The stress was eating me alive. Every night I dreamt of his calm voice saying, "You were never supposed to exist this long." Then one morning I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Daniel," the voice said softly. It was him. "I'm tired of hiding, meet me, one last time." I was shaking. "You're going to prison, Lewis, it's over." He chuckled, the same gentle, fatherly laugh he used when fixing my sink. "Oh no, son, it's just beginning. You'll come because you need answers about who you really are." He hung up. For a long time I just stood there, phone in hand, trying to breathe. Who I really am, what did he mean? I called Laura immediately. She told me not to go anywhere near him, but that sentence, "who you really are," burned in my mind. What if this wasn't just about fraud? What if there was more? That evening I found a USB drive slipped under my door. No note, just the drive. When I plugged it in, a single video file appeared. The thumbnail froze my heart. It was footage from my old house from months ago, showing me asleep in bed. I pressed play. The timestamp was from the night my door had been left open, the night I thought someone broke in. At first it was just me sleeping, then slowly the door opened. Lewis walked in quietly, holding a folder and a flashlight. He set them on the table, then looked straight at the camera as if he knew I'd see it someday. And then he whispered something, words I'll never forget. "You should thank me, Daniel. Without me, you'd never have existed at all." The video ended. I sat there frozen. What did that even mean? I called Laura again. She told me to bring the drive in immediately, but when I tried to eject it, the screen glitched. Another file appeared, a document named Birth Records PDF. Inside were 2 certificates, both under the name Daniel Carter. One with my photo, the other with his. Same date of birth, same hospital, same ID number. It was impossible. Two Daniels. I printed the document and brought it to Laura. She looked at it for a long time, speechless. This can't be real, she whispered, but the data checked out. Somehow, someone had cloned an entire identity, mine, using real records, and now both versions existed in the system. But only one could legally survive. That's when I realized what he meant. He wasn't stealing my life, he was taking his back. He believed he was the original Daniel Carter. And to prove it, he was going to make sure I disappeared for good. I didn't sleep that night. The thought kept echoing in my head, he believes he's the real me. How could that even be possible? Was he delusional, or was there something darker behind it? The police told me not to worry, that they'd trace the file's origins, but deep down I knew this wasn't something that could be solved with paperwork. The next morning, Detective Laura called. Her voice sounded tight, controlled, like she was hiding something. Daniel, she said, we ran both birth records. One of them is legitimate, the other is a perfect forgery, but we can't tell which one is real yet. My stomach twisted. What do you mean you can't tell? You've seen my ID. That's the thing, she said quietly. His ID matches every record yours does, down to the blood type, the fingerprints, even the hospital files. It's like someone duplicated a life. I felt my knees weaken. Are you saying he might actually be me? She paused, then said, we're still investigating, but Daniel, be careful. If he believes that, he won't stop until he erases you completely. That word erases hit me like a blade. Later that day, I got another call. Unknown number again. I almost ignored it, but curiosity or fear made me answer. Daniel, the voice said softly, it was him. They won't tell you the truth, they never do, but I will. Meet me at the old storage yard off Pinecrest Road, midnight. I'm not meeting you, I snapped. You're insane. He chuckled. You keep saying that, but you don't remember, do you? They erased you first, I just took back what was mine. The call ended before I could reply. I reported it to the police, but they couldn't trace the call. Still, Laura insisted I stay put. He's baiting you, she warned. He wants control. But something about his words, it gnawed at me. You don't remember, do you? That night, I couldn't resist. Against every warning, I drove to Pinecrest. The road was empty, swallowed in fog. The storage yard was abandoned, rusted gates, flickering lights, the kind of place where secrets rot quietly. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. Lewis, I shouted, my voice echoed through the silence. If you're here, show yourself. For a few seconds, nothing, then I heard slow footsteps behind me. He emerged from the shadows wearing a dark coat, his face older than I remembered, tired but smiling faintly. You came, he said. Why are you doing this? I demanded. He tilted his head. Because I already did it once before. They took it from me, my house, my name, my insurance, my life, and then they created you, the replacement. I shook my head. That's insane. He stepped closer, eyes burning. Is it? You think you're the first Daniel Carter to live in that house? Look around. You're standing in what's left of the files they buried, boxes full of names they recycled. Do you think it's coincidence that we share everything? You were made, Daniel. I took a step back, my pulse racing. You're lying. He smiled sadly. Am I? Look in box 42, then you'll know. Before I could move, flashing lights filled the yard, police sirens. Laura had tracked my phone. She ran toward me, shouting, Daniel, get back. But Lewis didn't run, he just raised his hands, calm, almost relieved. Finally, he murmured. They tackled him to the ground. He didn't fight back, didn't even blink as they handcuffed him. When they took him past me, he looked up and whispered, you'll see soon enough, one of us isn't real. Even when he was gone, the words clung to me like smoke. Later, at the station, Laura was furious. You could have been killed, she said, but I barely heard her. I couldn't stop thinking about that box he mentioned, box 42. A few days later, a forensic team cleared out the storage yard. And there it was among stacks of decaying boxes, one labeled 42. Inside were old insurance files, hospital records, and dozens of birth certificates, all with different names, but every single one listed the same date of birth, the same hospital, the same attending doctor. The same doctor who delivered me. Laura stared at the files, speechless. This looks like identity cloning, she whispered. An entire operation. Someone been creating people on paper, copies of real identities, and selling them for insurance fraud. My head spun, so Lewis, he wasn't crazy. Partly, she said softly, but partly right. He must have found out he was a copy, one of the identities they used, and instead of accepting it, he decided to replace the real one, you. The truth hit me hard. He didn't just want my life, he believed it belonged to him. That night I tried to sleep, but the images wouldn't leave my mind, the files, the matching documents, the whispered words, one of us isn't real. The next morning I got a call from the police. Lewis had escaped custody during transfer. I felt the air leave my lungs. How? They said he faked a seizure in the van, attacked the guard, and vanished into the woods. My nightmare wasn't over. I was moved again, this time to a safe house under full surveillance. They said it was just until they found him, but fear doesn't fade with walls. I kept hearing sounds at night, faint creaks, quiet knocks, maybe my imagination. Then one evening I found a note slipped under my door, just 3 words again. Box 43 next. I froze, there hadn't been a 43, at least not in the files they found. The next morning I asked Laura if there was another box. She frowned. No, the numbering ended at 42. But that night I couldn't shake the feeling. I went back through the photo evidence, zooming in on the stacks from the warehouse, and there, almost hidden behind debris, was a smaller box, unlabeled but half buried under the others. I sent the image to Laura. She promised to send a team back in the morning. But morning came too late. At 3 a.m. my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, a video attachment. It was Lewis, his face bruised, eyes bloodshot, whispering hoarsely. You found 42, but 43 is yours, Daniel. It's where they kept the proof. Open it before they do. The video ended with coordinates. I called Laura immediately. She told me to stay put, but I couldn't. I needed to know. I drove there myself, a warehouse near the river, half collapsed and swallowed by fog. Inside, dust hung thick in the air and old file boxes were scattered across the floor. I found it near the back, a small box marked in faded ink, 43. Inside was a single folder, my name again, my photo, my signature, but under origin, one line froze my blood. Created identity, subject D, test 43. Attached was a report signed by someone named Dr. Thomas Lewis. My voice caught, Lewis, Dr. Lewis. I flipped through the pages. It described an experimental insurance cloning program, one that manufactured duplicate identities to claim unregistered benefits for deceased citizens. The subjects were given real names, homes, even synthetic background data, until the operation was shut down. I wasn't born, I was built on paper. Lewis wasn't my landlord, he was the man who made me. And now, he wanted to erase the mistake he'd created. I stumbled backward, the truth burning in my chest. My whole life, my memories, my records were the leftovers of someone else's crime. Then a voice behind me said softly, now you understand. I turned, Lewis stood in the shadows, pale, trembling but smiling. I didn't want to hurt you, he said. You were supposed to disappear quietly when the system collapsed, but you kept living, you started believing you were real. Tears blurred my vision. You made me, you gave me a life and then tried to steal it. He nodded slowly, because it was mine first. I built the system, I created you to save what I'd lost, but then you became better, freer, and I couldn't let that stand. He took a step closer, his voice breaking. But now you know, we're the same man, Daniel, just born on different sides of a lie. I backed away, gripping a rusted pipe from the floor. You're not me. He smiled faintly, aren't I? Before I could move, sirens wailed outside. Red and blue lights cut through the broken windows. Lewis didn't run this time, he just looked at me, almost peaceful. They'll never let you live as him, he said softly. When they learn the truth, they'll erase both of us. Then he raised something to his head, a gun, and whispered, at least one of us gets to die as Daniel Carter. I shouted, but the shot echoed before I could reach him. The police found me kneeling beside him, shaking, blood on my hands. They called it a suicide, they cleared my name. But the next day, when I tried to log into my bank, my ID was flagged as invalid, my social number deleted, my insurance frozen. Just like that, I was gone again. In the system's eyes, Daniel Carter no longer existed. And somewhere deep down, part of me wondered maybe that's how it was always supposed to end. I never thought the truth would come to me in a letter. A plain white envelope, no return address, slipped under my door one quiet morning. My hands trembled as I opened it, and inside was a single page, a death certificate. My real brother's name with my landlord's signature where the next of kin should have been. It felt like the air was sucked out of the room. My knees gave out and I just stared at that paper. He didn't just lie to me, he erased me. I rushed to the police station with the letter, my ID, the hospital records, everything. The officer on duty scanned the papers and frowned. He called another officer over, then another. They whispered for a moment before one of them turned to me and said, "You might want to sit down." They pulled up a file and there it was, the landlord's photo next to my brother's name. He'd claimed to be the only surviving family member. He'd received the life insurance payout 6 months ago, more than $300,000. I felt sick. That money was meant for family, for me, for the person who actually loved my brother. When they finally arrested him, he looked at me with eyes I'll never forget, cold, empty, like he wasn't even sorry. "You were never supposed to find out," he muttered as the officers led him away. I wanted to scream, to hit him, to ask why, but no sound came out. In court, his lawyer tried to argue that it was a misunderstanding, that he only claimed the money to protect it from me since I was, as he said, too emotional to handle finances. But the evidence was undeniable: forged signatures, fake hospital documents, and even a falsified DNA test. He'd planned everything. When the verdict was read, guilty of fraud, identity theft, and forgery, I should have felt relief. But instead I felt nothing, just exhaustion. Years of manipulation, confusion, and betrayal had hollowed me out. I sat in that courtroom as he was sentenced to 10 years, staring at the man who'd pretended to be family, wondering how many lies had built the world I once called home. After the trial, I moved out of that apartment for good. Every corner reminded me of his voice, his fake kindness, the smell of his coffee in the mornings. I couldn't stand it. I found a small place near the edge of town, quieter, safer, the kind of place where no one knew my story. Sometimes I still wake up at night hearing his footsteps in the hall. Sometimes I imagine my real brother watching from somewhere, wondering how I got so tangled in a stranger's lies, but I'm learning to let go. Slowly. The insurance company eventually returned the money to me after months of paperwork, but I didn't keep it. I donated most of it to a charity for victims of identity theft because that's what I became. A victim of someone pretending to love me, pretending to be family, pretending to care. It's strange how someone can walk into your life as a landlord and almost walk out with your identity, your peace, your name, but I guess that's what deception does. It wears the face of trust until one day you see the cracks. And when you do, it's already too late. Still, I'm alive, I'm free, and now when I look in the mirror, I see someone who survived, someone who lost everything she thought was real and still found the courage to start over. Because sometimes, family isn't who shares your blood. It's who never pretends to.